Let us discuss the next question. This question is from 2023. By which one of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India? The Regulating Act, the Pitt's India Act, the Charter Act of 1793, the Charter Act of 1833. Now the question is asking us through which act the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India. Here you need to understand the chronology of how the political history progressed, how the centralization of power happened in the British Empire, and how later on in 1958 till the time the crown took over, there were different acts. So starting with the Regulating Act, which came in 1773. Now what was the background for the Regulating Act? Till then what used to happen? The company's trade was not that heavily regulated. The officers of the company, apart from involving in the company's trade, they also used to have private trade. Because of the private trade, the corruption increased and the company officials used to misuse the powers given to the company and enrich themselves personally. So in order to regulate all of this, the Regulating Act, as the name suggests, it was brought in. The main purpose of that is to control and regulate the affairs of the East India Company. And through this Regulating Act, the Governor of Bengal, he became the Governor General of Bengal. And the first Governor General of Bengal that way was Warren Hastings. So definitely it is not the Regulating Act, because the Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal. The question is asking us in which act the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India. So from the Governor of Bengal, they were designated as Governor General of Bengal, and later on will the Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. So it is definitely not the Regulating Act. So what happened in the Pitt's India Act? The Pitt's India Act of 1784. This act is more about the double government, wherein the Board of Control and the Court of Directors, the powers of governing India into the political affairs and the commercial affairs, it was divided. So it was not the Pitt's India Act also. And what happened in the Charter Act of 1793? In this Charter Act, whatever were the powers earlier given to the Governor Generals, the powers were extended. Mostly the Governor Generals got overriding powers and the powers over the other presidencies. These kind of additional powers, extension of powers happened in the Charter Act of 1793. Finally, in the Charter Act of 1833, the Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India, and Lord William Bentinck was the first person to be declared as the Governor General of India. So by which of the following acts it was declared? By the Charter Act of 1833. So this is how you solve this question in the exam. Now let us go through the in-depth provisions so that even if you get a question related to the other provisions of these acts, you're well prepared. So like I already said, in order to regulate the affairs of the company, the Regulating Act was brought in by the British government. The Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal in this act, and first such person was Lord Warren Hastings. And an executive council was also set up, and the Supreme Court in Calcutta was set up with one Chief Justice and 3 other judges. It increased the control of the British government over the company, and the Court of Directors, that is the directors of the company who were managing the affairs of the company sitting in England, the Court of Directors, they had to report about the civil matters, military matters of what was happening in India to the British government. So it laid down certain obligations on the Court of Directors. And ultimately, the governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies, till now they were also independent and equal to the Bengal presidency. Now the Bengal presidency became superior, and the governors of Madras presidency and the Bombay presidency, they became subordinate to the Bengal presidency. That is why the Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal, and these people were made subordinate. The other two British presidencies, they were made subordinate to the Bengal presidency. This is what happened in the Regulating Act. You'll see how through various measures, starting from the Regulating Act and ending with the Act of 33, how the power of centralization took place in the British Empire. Next, the major act which was there was the Pitt's India Act. And the major provision of this act is it differentiated the commercial functions of the company and the political functions of the company. So that is why we say there was a system of double government now. A new board of control was established. A board of control. Earlier, what used to happen? The court of directors were completely responsible for all the affairs of the company. Now a board of control was established. The board of control, it used to manage the political affairs and the civil and military affairs of the British India. Whereas the court of directors, the directors of the company, like earlier, because the company is a commercial entity, now the court of directors were given only the powers related to the commercial affairs of the company. So how do you remember this? See this name, there is double T here. So Pitts has double T. So remember, double government comes from the act which has double T. So this is a small trick to remember in which act the system of double government came into picture. Because there is double T in the name of the act, so the double government came into picture. And moving on to the next major act, later on there was the amending act of 1786 wherein Lord Cornwallis now was appointed as the Governor General and his powers were extended and he was given the overriding powers of the council. Remember earlier we had the Executive Council. Now the powers to override the Executive Council, it was given to the Governor General. Later on in the Charter Act of 1973, like I said, whatever the overriding powers were there, those powers were extended and the Governor General also got more powers over the Madras and Bombay presidencies and the trade monopoly of the company got extended. And ultimately, the members of the Board of Control and the administrative staff, now they had to be paid out of the revenue that was generated in India. Now finally the Act of 1813. Now what happened in this act? In this act, till now the company used to have the monopoly of trade in India. Only the East India Company could deal with all the affairs and trade in India. Now the trade monopoly was ended. Now it was open to all British merchants. Anyone from Britain can come and they could set up a company and they could trade in India, except the monopoly of trade in China and the monopoly of trade in tea that was still kept with the East India Company. Again, even in this act, the company's rule was extended for another 20 years and the board of control which was there, their powers were extended, and here through this act, the Christian missionaries were granted permission to go to India, that is come to India and do their conversions. Finally, the Charter Act of 1833. So the centralization which started with the Regulating Act, it kind of culminated in the Charter Act of 1833. Ultimately, in this act, the Governor General of Bengal was designated as the Governor General of India and he was vested with all the civil and military powers with respect to the British possessions in India. And that is how Lord William Bentinck became the first Governor General of India. And now because it is the Governor General who has the ultimate authority, he was also given the legislative powers over the entire British dominion in India. And the governors of Bombay and Madras, they lost their legislative powers and the whole legislative powers for the entire British India, it was given to the Governor General of India. And from now onwards, whatever were the laws made, they started to be called as acts. And later on, using the provisions of this act, the Indian Law Commission was set up so that the laws for India could be codified. And the first Law Commission was headed by Lord Macaulay. This is a question which generally comes in state PSS, so that is why I have included it here. So coming back to our question, in which act was the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India? It was in the Charter Act of 1833. So the way to solve this question is trying to remember the major provisions which happened. So in the Regulating Act, It was the governor of Bengal becoming the Governor General of Bengal. Later on in the Pitts Act, that is double T, so double government, Board of Control, Court of Directors. The Charter Act of 1793, it extended the powers. Ultimately, in the Act of 1833, the Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. So D is the correct answer for this question. Thank you.